KAL HALAL YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM Rakadesh. KAL HALAL, all praises. Yahweh, who they ignorantly call God. YAHWAHSHI, who they ignorantly call BAHASHAM in the name. Rakadesh, Holy Spirit. This is another digital epistle to the 12 tribes of Israel, or 12 tribes of Yasharal, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, Seminoles, Seminole Indians, Hispanics, so-called Haitians, and two other tribes that may not look like, two other Israelites who may not look like these ethnicities in the flesh, but do also go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob through the Spirit. Double honors to the elders and apostles who've been laboring in this work for years and decades. And honors to any man pushing on this likewise doctrine or believers. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are physicians of no value. Well, I don't have scriptures, but hopefully the Spirit could work with me.
Holmes promised the world a medical revolution. At 19, she claimed to have invented a miniaturized machine that, with a single drop of blood, could map our health. Her boast was serious diseases like cancer would be prevented before they happened. And it was not only a wow moment for patients. High-profile investors poured a fortune into Elizabeth Holmes' company, Theranos. Their money... Elizabeth Holmes is no visionary. She's a fraudster who's risked people's lives and, if convicted, faces 20 years.
It's finding what you're going to do. When you really give everything to that, then you can realize great things.
Holmes was making the greatest promise of all, that she could save lives through a revolutionary blood testing device she had created, and which she would make available to all through supermarkets and pharmacies.
Theranos means being able to see the onset of disease in time to be able to do something about it.
I'd like to welcome Elizabeth Holmes.
The real treat, the incredible Elizabeth Holmes.
California's Silicon Valley and some of the richest people in the world bought the dream.
There are people in this world who revolutionize our lives: Coco Chanel, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, and Elizabeth Holmes. Mark my words.
Turning Theranos into a staggering $9 billion juggernaut and making Holmes the Tech Valley's first self-made female billionaire.
You founded this company 12 years ago, right? Tell them how old you were.
I was 19.
Celebrity commentators and cashed-up investors couldn't get enough of this new kid on the block.
In Silicon Valley, she was the new darling, and a lot of that was because she was a woman entrepreneur, which is a very popular thing. It's been a man's world, for so long. She would wear black turtlenecks like Steve Jobs and sold her little tail, and everybody bought it for a while.
The revolution promised by Elizabeth Holmes was to put preventative healthcare at our fingertips, quite literally. All it would take would be one tiny drop of blood from a finger prick, from which to run hundreds of blood tests using a groundbreaking miniature. Holmes was to put preventative healthcare at our fingertips.
A new darling, and a lot of that was because she was a woman entrepreneur, which is a very popular thing. It's been a man's world, for so long.
In like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel, shamefacedness, and sobriety, not with royal hair, gold, pearls, or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness within good works. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach her, nor to usurp authority over the man, but be silent. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived. The woman deceived was also in transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing, if she continue in faith, sobriety, and holiness. If she continue in faith, charity, and holiness with sobriety. She wanted to be Steve Jobs. She wanted to be she would try to model herself like a man. It's gonna get crazier. In the kingdom, you're not gonna have a woman usurping authority over the man. You're not gonna have the 144,000, and you're not gonna have a Deborah. You're not gonna have a Deborah giving orders in the same manner as 144,000.
She would wear black turtlenecks like Steve Jobs and sold her little tail, and everybody bought it for a while.
The revolution promised by Elizabeth Holmes was to put preventative health care at our fingertips, quite literally. All it would take would be one tiny drop of blood from a finger prick, from which to run hundreds of blood tests using a groundbreaking miniaturized testing device which would deliver more reliable, faster and cheaper results.
People don't like big needles being stuck into their arm. Part of it...
You're one of those people, right?
Deeply so, yes.
Elizabeth's machine would wipe out the reliable...
You hear that sound like shit going through hormone replacement therapy.
faster and cheaper results.
People don't like big needles being stuck into their arm. Part of it...
You're one of those people, right?
Deeply so, yes.
Elizabeth's machine would wipe out the traditional way of doing things, larger volumes of blood drawn from the arm by big needles,
Baby swords everywhere.
and costly and time-consuming lab analysis. The mission was to enable everyone to get blood tests as frequently as once a month, to build a personal health profile, and to catch diseases like cancer at their earliest.
People don't even know that they have a basic human right to be able to get access to information about themselves and their own bodies that can change their lives.
But as whistleblowers would expose, the Elizabeth Holmes revolution turned out to be an extraordinary fraud. A lie that put lives in jeopardy. Were you ever asked to falsify data or destroy data?
Oh, just get rid of these tests that you've run.
Wiped out nearly $1 billion of investors' money.
There was no money to be had. It all just evaporated.
Any comment at all to the investors?
And may well end with Holmes behind bars for up to 20 years, come her fraud trial later this month.
Ms. Walls, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
How would you describe the rise and then the fall of Elizabeth Holmes?
Well, I think it is a commentary on Silicon Valley's culture. There's so much hyping, so much exaggerating in this culture that, young entrepreneurs are basically bred to behave this way.
And as investigative journalist John Carreyrou found, there were plenty of people in the room willing to drink the Kool-Aid, all hoping to crack the unicorn club, the billion-dollar startups emerging in Silicon Valley at the time.
This was the unicorn boom, and this was 2015, and things were getting really frothy in Silicon Valley, and people didn't want to miss the next Facebook, and a lot of people wanted to get on board this next rocket ship to riches.
When she first interviewed me, I have to say I was a bit starstruck.
Science graduate Erica Chung was not out to get rich, she just wanted a job. And Theranos, with Ernest Elizabeth Holmes at the helm, was the dream pick.
I was really enthusiastic as sort of a young scientist to work for a company that seemed to have a compelling vision and a strong leader who seemed to back it as well.
But Erica was shocked to find the Theranos dream was in fact a fairy tale, peddled by Holmes and Chief Operating Officer Ramesh Sunny Balwani, Elizabeth's boyfriend at the time. For all the excitement, the little black box simply did not work. It could not do what the pair claimed.
144. 144. KAL HALAL YAHAWAH, send me outside. I'll probably be at that number. It says, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. Avoid profane and vain babblings, empty babblings, oppositions of science, falsely so called. And science means no, but they said this was inaccurate. They act like they had some next level technology, and they had nothing. And they were leading you to death. This is the deceiver.
The reality of working at Theranos was that a lot of the things that were being said about the company were not actually what was going on behind closed doors. This new revolutionary device, it wasn't actually in existence. It hadn't quite been built yet.
Worse, they were using a jerry-rigged version of the machine to run patients' blood tests. The results were often false or misleading, but this too was hidden from an unsuspecting public, despite the significant health risks.
I just wanted people to know that they were leveraging this faulty device to test on patients, and that needed to be stopped.
Rumours of Theranos' bad practice were circulating. But it was journalist John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal who would be the first to start investigating after a tip-off from a skeptical pathologist.
Thy own lips condemn thee, not I. Yeah, thy own lips testify against thee. Own lips. You got Edomites coming against Edomites, exposing each other.
As well as please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
How would you describe the rise and then the fall of Elizabeth Holmes?
Well, I think it is a commentary on Silicon Valley's culture. There's so much hyping, so much exaggerating in this culture that, young entrepreneurs are basically bred to behave this way.
And as investigative journalist John Carreyrou found, there were plenty of people in the room willing to drink the Kool-Aid, all hoping to crack the Unicorn Club, the billion-dollar startups emerging in Silicon Valley at the time.
This was the unicorn boom, and this was 2015, and things were getting really frothy in Silicon Valley, and people didn't want to miss the next Facebook, and a lot of people wanted to get on board this next rocket ship to riches.
When she first interviewed me, I have to say I was a bit starstruck.
Science graduate Erica Chewin was not out to get rich, she just wanted a job. And Theranos, with Ernest Elizabeth Holmes at the helm, was the dream pick.
I was really enthusiastic as sort of a young scientist to work for a company that seemed to have a compelling vision and a strong leader who seemed to back it as well.
But Erica was shocked to find the Theranos dream was in fact a fairy tale, peddled by Holmes and Chief Operating Officer Ramesh Sunny Balwani, Elizabeth's boyfriend at the time. For all the excitement, the little black box simply did not work. It could not do what the pair claimed.
The reality of working at
of healthcare startup company Theranos and its founder Elizabeth Holmes starts at Stanford University in 2003.
This used to be my advisor's office. We got in.
At just 19, and after just 2 semesters studying chemical engineering, Holmes dropped out of university to become a medical technology entrepreneur.
Another few classes in chemical engineering was not necessary for what I wanted to do.
One of the first to hear her future business plans was Stanford University Professor of Medicine, Dr. Phyllis Gardner. Unlike most who encountered Holmes, Dr. Gardner was not impressed. Did Elizabeth Holmes always have big dreams, in your opinion?
Absolutely. Her ambition was over the top. And unfortunately, the person who...
And it's funny how she made it cool like she dropped out. She tried to pull like what a lot of the men supposedly did. Like we know Bill Gates lied about it. And we know he didn't really create that Microsoft. These men are really set up by the elites. So a woman, all wickedness is little to a woman, especially a woman who has the lust of Babylon, who's drinking the Kool-Aid, who's eating the fruit from the tree of the garden, who's eating that feminism, trying to usurp authority around a man, trying to go outside of BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI's national order.
Introduced her to me, said she's just brilliant. She's just brilliant. And when you're surrounded by Nobel laureates, you take that with a grain of salt, a boulder of salt. She had no knowledge of medicine and a rudimentary knowledge of engineering, and she was 19. And she really didn't want any expertise. She thought she knew it all.
Because BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI deprived her of wisdom, neither hath he imparted unto her understanding. Blessed is the man that hath the virtuous woman, for the number of the days shall be doubled. And if you really have a virtuous woman, it's really gonna make your day easier, even in captivity. If most of these men had a virtuous woman, had a 100% submissive woman and righteous woman who really held down the house and did everything to her, and the average woman out here was coming to the standard, was coming and treating their husband with the standard of BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, y'all wouldn't want to leave Babylon. A virtuous woman rejoices her husband, and he shall be fulfilled with many years of life and peace. A good wife is a portion which shall be given in portion to them who fear the Lord, whether a man be rich or poor. If he have a good heart towards the Lord, he shall at all times rejoice with a cheerful countenance. There be 3 things that my heart feareth, and the 4th was sword, the slander of the city, the gathering together of the unruly multitude, the falsely accuser, and all these are worse than death. But grief of the heart and sorrow of a woman that is jealous over another woman, and scorneth the tongue which is communicated with all. An evil wife is a yoke that be shaken from the fro. He that hath hold of her is as though he had held on a scorpion. A drunken woman and a gatherer abroad cause great anger. When she's running around town, it causes great anger. She's a drunken woman just running around pissing everyone off. And she shall not cover her own shame. The whoredom of the woman shall be known with her haughty looks and her eyelids. If thy daughter be shameless, keep her in straitly, lest thou abuse herself through overmuch liberty. If her parents were on her, if they were really on her, knew how much she knew and stopped them, how much lives wouldn't have been impacted. Now she abused herself. Now she's looking at jail. All because she had too much freedom, trying to act like a man. All these men that are really set up by the Rothschilds and the Edomites. And look how she doomed everyone's life. She could have personally affected your family. You know, you could have someone who was going through something, who wasn't necessarily diabetic, who didn't necessarily have heart issues, and the medication, because they have been taking it, pushed them over the edge. Wickedness. Watch over an impudent eye, and marvel if she not trespass against thee. You know how Jake be. They can have a crazy girl, mess, do some crazy stuff 10 times, and 11 times they still be shook. Who? She opened her mouth as a thirsty traveler when she go find a fountain and drink of every water near her. By the hedge as she sitting down and open her quiver against every arrow. You know, you can take this sexually. But in this one, this really applies spiritually. She took every belief. She took all the Steve Jobs. She thought she could lower her voice. She thought that she just took all this philosophy. She was swallowing all the philosophy. Thought it would play out for her. And she played this girl boss. The grace of a wife delighteth her husband, and discretion will fatten his bones. Will Smith withering right now because we got no discretions. A silent loving woman does good to the Lord. There's nothing so much worth as a mind well instruction. Shamefaced and faithful woman is a double grace, and her continent mind cannot be valued. As the sun when it riseth in the high heavens is the beauty of a woman in ordering of her house.
Elizabeth Holmes promised
Want any expertise. She thought she knew it all. Well, you don't at 19.
And what seems to blow my mind is, like, you know, men have their problems, women have their problems. Yes, there are niggers, but you definitely have Negroes, natives, Latinos, who are like the average Jake. They may not be conforming themselves in the image of YAHWAHSHI, but you know, they're just average. Like the end of should complain about how all the Jakes out here are gangsters, but you have average Jakes out here. But that, you know, they may not be in the rights. They may not be on. How do I say? Like, they may not necessarily be on the right path, you know, they're just trying to do what's right. They may not be holding up the moral standard of the Bible, but, you know, they're doing their thing. So when you come see some of these women, bro, these women, at least these men, what I'm trying to say, at least some of these young men they don't know everything. You come talk to any woman at any age, whatever her idea about feminism and women's rights, she don't think, I don't know, she knows everything, and she not only knows more than all the men around her, she knows all around the women combined. From the short 15, 16, 17 years she's been alive, she thinks she knows better than all women in history. That's what's funny.
I'm sorry.
When a woman thinks she's smart and she thinks she can figure it out, it's really like she thinks she's smart. But the perception of it, like, the perception of it just seems smart, but when you really look into it, like, it just has holes in it. I'm just speaking of, the shameful woman, the impudent woman that is wicked women. Like, if this don't apply to you, you shouldn't be offended.
But right from the start, Elizabeth Holmes knew the power of PR.
I believe the individual is the answer to the challenge.
Did I not just say perception?
Healthcare.
She didn't bother proving her so-called groundbreaking blood testing device could do all she promised through peer reviews or releasing extensive data.
Let's take these tests and make them accessible.
Instead, she gathered a war council to her board, reveling in their fame and credibility.
So it includes 3 former U.S. cabinet secretaries, 2 former U.S. senators, a retired Navy admiral, and a retired Marine Corps general, including George Shultz, Henry Kissinger. How did you make that happen?
The board was George Shultz, Jim Mattis, Henry Kissinger, and a bunch of 4-star generals. And someone said, this is like a board that's going to take over the world. And but what does it have to do with medical advancements? Nothing. And so everyone was duped. Silicon Valley really had egg on its face over this thing.
But initially, like so many, small-time investor Eileen Lepper was impressed after she was advised to sink a hard-earned $100,000 into Theranos. Was there something about the nature of what Elizabeth Holmes was hoping to do, promising to do, that attracted you to this type of investment? Was there anything altruistic about it?
Not for me. I was looking to make money. But I worked for a venture capitalist at the time, and he said it would be equivalent to Apple and to get as many shares as I could.
No matter there was no evidence, the money flowing into Theranos was huge, almost $1 billion. At one time, Rupert Murdoch was the single biggest investor, buying $125 million worth of shares. Coincidentally, as the proprietor of the Wall Street Journal, he was also investigative journalist John Carreyrou's boss at the time Carreyrou exposed Holmes' spin as lies. To invest that sort of money without any real data, any peer reviews, I mean, did that surprise you?
As it relates to Murdoch, he kind of operates from the gut, and mostly he's been right. As for the other investors, certainly, they should have done more due diligence. I think it was a deliberate choice of Elizabeth's to focus on what I would call uncharitably the dumb money, the billionaires and their family offices, as opposed.
You see, look at these Edomites, even some of the big names that you see, really just be guesses. And the way that they look at things, they could convince people to invest millions and billions of dollars in something that they haven't even seen. But they just got such a deceitful systems of 1 and 0s that and they have all these illusions with how they market things, that people could really sell something and you think you could invest billions into something you think is the next multi-billion-dollar idea, and it's nothing. That's Esau Edom for
to the sophisticated Silicon Valley venture funds, who I don't think they would have fallen for the same lies.
What do you think of the investors who lined up to give her nearly $1 billion worth of money?
Older white men. Right. I'm telling you, I've said it. Brains going south.
They weren't thinking with their brains, is what you're saying.
I don't know, and they believed her. And she could be charming. She could be, I'm sure. It just didn't charm me, but she could be charming to older men.
Giving.
Yeah, you know they're suggesting. You know, like the Squid Games, these Edomites, these Rockefellers, the Amalek, they have very perverse taste. And apparently they're throwing all these billions of dollars at something they ain't really understand. Or maybe they made their money out there to see.
People the right to obtain a laboratory test will, by definition, begin the process of enabling them to engage in their health.
Ms. Holmes, you are magnificent.
With Elizabeth's charm offensive in full flight, results back in the lab were going from bad to worse, according to former lab associate Erica Chung.
They were producing really wildly inaccurate and imprecise results on a consistent basis across many different types of blood tests. Tests like hepatitis C, or your thyroid test, or tests that would be predictive of cancer. It's telling us very clearly we need to stop testing patients.
Every person should have the ability to get that type of test.
But Elizabeth was not listening, desperate for her technology to catch up with her vision.
Your health is really important to us, the kids.
Of all those taken in by the Theranos mania, it would be patients who had the most to lose.
Nothing is more important than the health of those who love.
It was just a big fraud. And if you can perpetrate a fraud, smile about it, go to White House dinners, that to me is just no conscience.
This notion that she was faking it until she could make it, do you think that she ever believed herself in what she could do?
Possibly. Probably. I mean, it's almost like in another fantasy world. An egoism that I can't describe. I don't have that. I doubt you have that. Fake it till you make it. Excuse me, on patients? I don't think so.
What is your view of that? That they're happy to go live with a system that's still being tested and is actually failing?
Yeah, it's unconscionable. It's unethical. It's immoral. There's, all the words you can think about to describe that.
And in Australia, why the Elizabeth Holmes miniature black box was never going to work.
She could never do what she claimed she could do.
Founder and CEO of startup company Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes, was promising to make possible the impossible in the name of preventative medicine.
The issue comes that she tried to essentially take an entire pathology lab and squish it into a little black box and promised to be able to do all those tests all the time for people. And it takes years and years to develop a single one of those tests up to the standard where it can be accurate. So it was, ambitious doesn't quite capture it, but it was incredibly ambitious.
Medical scientist Dr. Darren
So you hear this bitch? She just said fuck all your health. She said fuck all your health. She do not care. She don't care. A shameless woman shall be counted as a dog, but she that is shamefast shall be will fear the Lord. Well, the bitch was killing everybody, bro. Hey, I don't know what to say, bro. She was really setting all y'all up. And after all these things, I saw another angel come down from the heavens, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he screamed with a mighty voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is a habitation of all devils, of deceivers, and look, a deceiver. It's her, anyone who knew what was going on, y'all deceivers. You got a whole bunch of Edomites selling poison, selling death. It's all these people. Like the mandates right now, selling death. Crazy. And to hold every foul spirit, every cage of unclean bird, every cage of unclean and hateful bird. And that's really what happened. Every sodomite spirit, every feminist spirit, every antichrist spirit, every spirit against YAHWAHSHI, the anti-Hamashiach spirit. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. In America, everything is just abundant. Everyone's whitewashed, and when I say that, he's thinking that you're whitewashed if you don't think that just because you're in Babylon, great, you're impervious, you're all the everything that being all the other third world countries can't touch America. Famine can't touch America. Pillaging can't touch America. Women getting raped can't touch America. Mass inflation can't touch America. Oh, everyone will just start flooding. You're done. For all nations have drunk of the wine, have drunk of the philosophies. And you can't say that's the Vatican Church, because in Afghanistan, in Afghanistan, ain't many Christians. In Palestine, there were maybe like only 2% Christians, but you definitely got some Mo's out there. You definitely got all of them dreaming about America and having some unclean spirit that they got from America. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. The merchants of wax rich, people selling you poisons like this. The abundance of her delicacies. I heard another voice in heaven saying, "Oh, come out of her, my people. Be not partaken of her sins, that ye receive not of her plagues." You know what I mean? And if you sign up to this Asclepius worship, the medical industry altered to Asclepius, this may happen to you. It's one thing, it's best not to be on this medication. If you get it, you receive it, and you take it for a certain amount of time, and then you work to be off it and be on natural remedies would probably be the best, If you could avoid it, you can. But I'm not saying you're wicked if you do, but But if you think that that the medical field come in the name of Yahawashi, you will partake in the plagues of the Babylon. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh Yahawashi hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewards you, double unto her according to her works, unto her works in the cup, which shall be filled to her double. So you see how much people she done messed up with their health. We're gonna do double unto the enemy. Double unto her. For every person she affected, she will feel the pain in 1,000 years of captivity in the kingdom of heaven. How much has she glorified herself, lived deliciously, so much for her torment, sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and I will see no widow, I will see no sorrow. You see that girl? Especially, she got that deep voice, she got her bug eyes, she took that male persona, and she had like, oh, she queen. She's sitting on there, she girl boss. She will not see sorrow. It don't matter how many people's lives she's affecting, as long as she tells you something, as long as she's in her head, she's working to get to that goal, and they will reach that medical goal eventually. All wickedness is none. Therefore, her plague shall come in one day, death, famine, death in the morning, and the famine shall utterly burn with fire. For the strength is the Lord Yahweh, thy power. BAHASHAM YAHAWASHI, who judgeth her. For such is the way of an adulterous woman, and she's adulterous with the philosophy. She's adulterous dealing with the Asclepius and this pharmakias, which is this witchcraft. Where you get the word pharmacy from, pharmaceutical. Such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth, she wipeth her mouth, and say, I've done no wickedness.
Saunders from Sydney University has keenly followed the rise of Elizabeth Holmes and her promise that this mini-lab could run hundreds of blood tests off just one drop of blood. His expertise in the field made him incredulous right from the start.
Hundreds. So you might take that test and have 10 diseases, 15 diseases.
Over the last 11 years, we've reinvented the traditional laboratory infrastructure.
It's quite a weird thing to watch happen because you feel like shouting the emperor's not wearing any clothes, right? And as a scientist, I think frustrating is the word I'd use. Incredibly frustrating because you felt like taking these people's side and going, look, there's nothing going on here. Why are you spending so much money on something that there's no proof that it exists?
That was the phrase I always used. It was exactly that. The emperor has no clothes. And that is the
Come down, sit in thy dust. O virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground, there is no throne. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take thy millstone, grind thy meal, uncover thy locks, make thy leg bare, uncover thy thigh, pass by the river. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yeah, thee shall be seen. I shall take thy vengeance. I will not meet thee as a man, as the Redeemer, the Lord Yahweh of hosts of armies. His name is the Holy One of Israel. O sit thou silence, get into darkness, O daughter of Chaldeans. Thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. You know, if you ever been talking to a woman, you know, when you first talk to her, she might hit you with some attitude. You know, she got clothes on, she know she got makeup on, she looking all sexy, she hit you with attitude. Maybe she frightened, maybe she playing a little hard to get, maybe she playing with you a little bit. But when you get her in the bedroom and you take off the clothes, she nervous, she's shy. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that in the sense of you know, when old virgin daughter of Babylon, you know, one thing you'll never see is more prideful is a virgin daughter, a virgin woman, especially in Babylon, who really I've seen women brag about it, talk about, when these women know that they're virgins, but they're gonna be whores in the future. These women brag about it, yell about it. You hear it all the way down the hallways. But now that's what America is right now. You couldn't. America did all this wickedness, and you couldn't say anything about her. And now she's exposed. She's been exposed. Imagine you saw a girl, you just ripped her clothes off, and you just looked at her in the eyes. She'd be scared. She'd be shook. That's what America is right now. Now, when you had the nuclear missiles, when you dropped the bombs, the nuclear bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that woman was scared. She wasn't a virgin no more. She was defiled. She was shook. And America ain't never felt that feeling. The virgin daughter of Babylon hasn't been occupied. All these false flags, they attacked themselves. Pearl Harbor attacked themselves. 9/11 attacked themselves. The Chaldeans, the sorcerers. These are sorcerers.
Come within 5 miles of every person's home through the Walgreens that we've opened, and
Theranos was
the health and well-being.
Carefully crafted or otherwise, corporations were lining up to embrace Elizabeth Holmes. Her success was sealed when, in 2013, in a multi-million-dollar deal, Theranos was launched in pharmacy chain Walgreens.
We have an operational plan that will allow us to be
A blood test of a simple finger prick, which would cost next to nothing. They'd even get the results back within 4 hours. That was the promise. The truth was another matter, according to former Theranos lab associate Erica Chun.
You know, this thing that was supposed to be 5 would all of a sudden show up to be 60. And then you would run it and it would show up to be, 4. And it was just the degree of inaccuracy was just way too high to be acceptable to start running on patients.
So I got my Theranos test done on like 29th of July, and then 31st of July I got a test done by another lab, and it was different.
Unaware of the wildly unreliable results, Pallav Shada, himself a physician-turned-medical technology entrepreneur, went to Walgreens for a Theranos blood test.
Wait,
The results were surprisingly bad for this health-conscious medico. They showed he was pre-diabetic. Luckily, Pallav's own doctor was suspicious of the diagnosis and ordered another blood test from another lab.
That was the moment when I felt cheated, because there was a little bit of a pride hurt because I'm from the industry.
If you had not got a second opinion, a second test...
And his God was hurt. He was hurt. He took that Hippocratic oath. He took that oath to Asclepius and all the other Greek gods that they were given, that Jacob was worshiping and Esau was worshiping in the Hellenistic period. And he was hurt. He was offended. Like when these people going on a date with the dragon juice, and they realize that they can still catch the dragon sneeze. They're hurt.
What course of action would you have taken?
At age 35, I would have been started on anti-diabetic medication. And no medication comes without side effects. So
Now it's like, this was in Walgreens, so if you got a family that was on that diabetes medication or even pre-diabetic medication, they might have been Gucci.
I get emotional thinking about how big a deal it was for me.
If you followed the Theranos model, you would have been on medication for a disease you don't have.
Yes, absolutely. This is inexcusable, now and forever.
Was it the fact that there were illnesses that might not have been picked up? That there are people who might have been suffering from life-threatening diseases and they just didn't know it because they got a false result?
Yeah, the devices were so unreliable that you really couldn't trust it with any test.
The groundbreaking Theranos technology was a charade. Instead, Theranos was secretly using traditional, commercially available blood analyzers. Because those machines require larger amounts of blood to run their tests, staff were ordered to dilute the small blood samples collected by finger prick, rendering those results unsafe.
They were doing the tests on standard equipment, and they were diluting the blood, which invalidates a lot of the results. So I knew there was fraud going on, and from very early on.
But still, the marketing myth continued.
And you make a decision to do something, you do it, and that's it.
A previously non-existent lab was created, filled with as many of the black boxes the company could find. Then Vice President Joe...
And all the women in the room were like, oh, look, 2144. All the women were like, oh, let's do it. And they applied to their lives, bro.
Biden was invited to inspect.
This is sort of the laboratory of the future.
Unaware the devices didn't work and that he, along with the world, was being conned. To learn that she created a fake lab to show Joe Biden? I mean, what an audacious act of deception.
Well, she was audacious, I would.
All wickedness is little to all wickedness is but little to a woman.
Grant you that. And everything she did. I do.
Whatever lies she gotta come up with to bring up a procession, especially in this one. You know, just being a mother, just holding and supporting your husband, and being a restaurant to your husband, and nourishing him, and having kids. That's terrible as a woman. And we'll look down on other women who want to achieve that. That's not enough. So y'all women would rather come into this unrealistic standard and live y'all life in debt.
I think there's some, this is my opinion, that there's some...
And talk about how you don't need a man, but you always fantasize about the perfect man. You say you don't need a man, but the man that you can't be with unless he releases all that debt you got off.
Sociopathy involved. And the ability to lie and without caring is not normal from my perspective as a medical doctor.
She was trying to overpromise and then hope that her engineers and her biochemists would catch up, and that when they eventually did and that her machine worked, no one would be the wiser. The problem is she was nowhere near ready.
Elizabeth Holmes was revered as the superwoman scientist, come to rescue and revolutionize the US health system. But the true heroes of the Theranos tale are the courageous whistleblowers who helped investigative journalist John Carreyrou from the Wall Street Journal expose the sham. Off their testimonies, he went on to write the award-winning Bad Blood and is hosting a podcast called Bad Blood, The Final Chapter. These are people who wanted to do good. These are people who couldn't sleep at night because they were worried that patients were relying on false results.
Right.
Did that strike you as well?
They couldn't, in good conscience, continue to not say anything. They felt the need to speak up, and they felt that lives were in danger and that the longer this went on, the worse it would get.
Erica Chung was one such hero. When her concerns were ignored by Theranos, she left in disgust, but still feared for its customers. Erica alerted regulators to what was going on behind closed doors. You were being extraordinarily brave.
Yes.
You clearly felt compelled to get someone else in.
Even though it was scary and it was nerve-wracking, and at that time Theranos was at least threatening to sue me, and they were following me to sort of intimidate me and to not speak up against them. It's just that they needed to stop doing this thing, right? They needed to stop testing on patients, and that the truth needed to be uncovered.
This is what happens when you work to change things, and first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
Elizabeth Holmes came out fighting, but regulators acted against her, closing down Theranos laboratories and banning medical testing after they found massive fraud that put patients in serious jeopardy. The company, once valued at $9 billion, was now worth zero.
And that was good, right? Like, the mission was finally accomplished. By that point, I was able to finally sleep at night and realize that, you know, my work was done.
In further legal action, Elizabeth and ex-boyfriend Sunny Balwani are now in the midst of a delayed criminal trial for defrauding investors, patients and doctors, and could be jailed for up to 20 years if convicted. Holmes' trial has been pushed back to the end of this month, first by COVID, and then news she was expecting her first child, a son who was born in July.
To get pregnant when you're undergoing a trial is the height of irresponsibility in my mind.
And this is her idea of being saved through childbearing.
About the baby.
Well, do you think this was a planned pregnancy, or do you think it was an accident?
I definitely think it was. I mean, I was predicting it because it's the best way to garner sympathy. To try to keep herself out of prison.
I think she needs to go to prison for a while.
Now she wants sympathy with a boss woman.
I think 25 years sounds good.
Those closest to the Theranos dream, including investor Eileen Lepra, still believe Elizabeth Holmes should face the harshest sanctions because beyond money, so much was at stake.
Everybody knows it was all a sham. So why would you get a slap on the wrist? You know, if it was just money, that's one thing, but it's people's lives, their medical situations. That's not okay with anybody.
It says, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall onto her.
Despite what some of you say in the comments, apparently she like trained herself to make her voice lower. I wouldn't even know how to do that if I tried.
As a way to undercut misogyny and generate more credibility in a misogynistic world? Is that her thinking?
I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know. Well,
that's right. That's not her real voice. That's right. God, I remember that from somewhere. Yes.
It's hard to keep track.
It's a put on.
This is though my real voice. I promise. I promise. Well, so she allegedly fooled now former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos into investing nearly $100 million in a biotech startup, that would be Theranos. On Tuesday, Lisa Peterson, a director of the billionaire's family office, told jurors that she and members of the DeVos dynasty flew to Silicon Valley in 2014 to meet Holmes and Ramesh Sunny Balwani, the company's former president and Holmes' ex-boyfriend. Peterson testified that Holmes was, quote, hand-picking ultra-wealthy families to invest in the company, which claimed its portable blood testing devices could screen for a myriad of diseases with just the prick of a patient's finger. Technology that federal prosecutors are arguing Holmes and Balwani knew did not work as advertised. So the DeVos family is correct here that they were far from alone. There were a lot of very powerful and wealthy people who were tied up in this, and actually some of them were bringing other powerful and wealthy people into the fold. It's a good sort of statement on just how slippery Elizabeth Holmes was, and also just how eager I think a lot of people with tons of money are to, how easily they can be sort of bought as well.
Right, and also a lot of these people with big money might even know that the thing is a scam. Like people who get involved in MLM schemes or in pyramid schemes often know it's a pyramid scheme, but they often think they're going to be the ones that get out ahead of time. The fact that it's
well, they can be.
Right, and right. So I'm sure some people did make money on Theranos, getting in early and then getting out before the whole thing blew up. People have looked at this through a gender lens and asked whether a male CEO would have faced the same type of prosecution as a result of this. I think, I'm curious for your take though. I think where she went wrong is by getting into the real world. Like she got into people's lives just by doing blood tests. If you stick to tech that just exists in the clouds, either the actual cloud or metaphorical clouds, then you can run a scam. Your company can be bogus, but as long as you didn't kill anybody, they're going to let you continue to defraud people until the end of time. Yeah. But once you start getting into the healthcare business and saying that you're going to test somebody for whether or not they're pregnant, whether or not they have these whatever serious questions they have that they need answered by this blood test, and you give them bogus results, then I think people are going to be like, no. Yeah. No.
Well, I also think though that Elizabeth Holmes was very eagerly accepting the branding of girl boss feminism that the corporate media was giving her, and that's also I think where this went very wrong in that.
And she just didn't even try to play it low. She just didn't think, oh, I'm running a scam. Let me just get in the medical industry. Let me get this medical finesse and dip. No. She need to be the sign for the women. Girl boss power. Power. Let me tell you, bro, when these women live to face agendas and attention, all weakness is little to them. They don't think. They think about looking smart, looking successful. They don't care about what it is, just the perception. That's why Babel need to go.
The media sort of felt betrayed, and elites felt betrayed because they thought they were supporting a hashtag girl boss. It wasn't just that they were supporting this new technology. It was that they were supporting the new technology from the hashtag girl boss. And I think when that crumbled, it made it made it even more juicy and more like red meat for the media to come and sort of undercut her, because there's a storyline to that now too. And so, yeah, I mean, I think if anything, she got great treatment.
Everything that is done in the dark shall come to light. Is that juice, or was that the media looking to just come in and look for the juice of the story, or was it just the facts that a person that they idolized that was girl boss that looked at like another Oprah, like another successful businesswoman, finally being a figure that empowered everything that feminism is supposed to be? Because realistically, all they already got is women degrading themselves. People who are pushing feminism are these whores, these singers. I call them whores because if you go into the word enchantment, it's a spell cast by a woman like repeatedly singing a melody, and we got these singers, really these whore witches, sing these repetitive spells, casting a spell on our women to be wicked, and on our men to seek nothing above a harlot energy from a woman.
So Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes a lot. It made it even more juicy and more like red meat for the media to come and sort of undercut her, because there's a storyline to that now too. And so, yeah, I mean, I think anything, she got great treatment because of her sex, and then is now getting it tougher because she exploited that or played on it.
And it makes her defense extraordinarily ironic, because the defense that she's leading with is that she was actually manipulated by her boyfriend, Sonny Balwani. Like, that's her claim.
Yeah.
Maybe it's true.
It may be true.
But it's not very girl bossy.
It's not very girl bossy. It's not going to advance the feminist cause. But that's really just full circle for Elizabeth Holmes, someone who, again, was eagerly given that branding, and I think that does explain some of.
See, while she was doing her work, she was an independent woman. Well, she was a successful. She had a successful $9 billion medical operation. She was an independent woman, but now she gets in trouble. It's the man's fault. She was being controlled by the man the whole time.
Capital that went into this. Again, this technology, if it did what she said it was going to do, would be amazing and game-changing. And I honestly have a hard time blaming a lot of people who invest in a lot of things for putting their money there, even though, you know, you should monitor all of that better. And I'm sure they all will now. All of their donations, they give money to a lot of places. This technology is huge. She's incredible. She's coming from Stanford. And there's other powerful people sucking you into it, secretaries of state.
Right.
So, you know,
bunch of military people.
Right.
What ultimately makes the thing so mockable and ultimately risible, though, is that if these investors who are putting millions in talk to any blood testing experts, they'd be like, that's impossible.
Exactly.
Like, you can't do that many tests on a pinprick. And here's why.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the obvious reasons is that just a little pinprick infects the sample with what was pressed in, the little skin that was pressed in. So you can do some tests on that, but you're destroying the drops as you're doing the tests. And so how then are you going to be able to do all of these 20, 30, 40, 50 tests that they claim? So the blood test experts who've talked about this are like, it's just against the laws of chemistry, biology, and physics for this to be possible.
Well, and that's why I think Elizabeth Holmes' defense that she was manipulated by her ex-boyfriend, and there are some really interesting allegations, and there's some really interesting stories from Theranos about their relationship. That defense falls apart because Elizabeth Holmes isn't dumb enough to know that, like to not know that that's true. And even if she is dumb enough, her entire product, it's pretty easy to like look into it, as you just said, to talk to experts and say, yeah, no, no. And so I don't think it's a good defense, and I do think that if anything, rather than her being sort of a victim of misogyny, she sort of exploited our good faith sort of opposition to misogyny,
right,
and is now worsening it by furthering a stereotype.
Right, and she basically relied on the Silicon Valley religion that no does not exist, that there are no limits, and there are no physical limits. The only limit is you know, your cliches.
Right. It is a religion of cliches. Yeah. Oh, Elizabeth Holmes. I'm actually enjoying watching this trial play out because I think it's bringing in a lot of interesting layers and dynamics about our sort of like sexual politics and about the Silicon Valley politics. So I'm eager to continue.
Yeah, I'm listening to the podcast, following along with it.
It's good.
It's interesting.
We're now about halfway through the closely watched criminal trial of the Theranos founder. She's charged with conspiracy and fraud over claims she made about her company's blood testing machine, which, as it turned out, didn't work. Jurors learned this week of alleged internal problems at Theranos, too. The company hired a new lab director in 2014. Lab director. Except the recruiting process was a little unusual. The former director testified he was actually the longtime dermatologist for the Theranos president. He said throughout his nearly one-year stint, he visited the lab twice and worked a grand total of 10 hours in 1 year. According to
So, and then Esau Edom will tell you, rich people, they got all them degrees. Rich people, they don't sleep 8 hours a day. Push you all this nonsense. They push all this American dream nonsense to get you to work like a slave and drink this Babylonian juice. And look at what Esau Edom do. Look at what you Negroes, Latinos, and so-called Native Americans look up to.
Peters, that's not where the issues end. On the stand today, a member of Holmes' inner circle who testified that he unwittingly became part of what prosecutors call a brazen fraud. Here's CNBC's Scott Cohen.
Daniel Edlin was about as inside as a Theranos insider could get. Recruited by Elizabeth Holmes' brother Christian, a classmate at Duke, Edlin helped manage the relationship with Walgreens, which invested millions to put Theranos testing into its stores. Eventually, he would report directly to Holmes, but he testified that even he was initially unaware of what prosecutors say was Theranos' deep, dark secret. That rather than analyzing finger-stick blood samples on Theranos' own devices, the technology that was supposed to revolutionize healthcare, the company was using third-party equipment. He says he didn't learn until 2 years later, in 2016, that technology demonstrations he was staging for potential business partners, demonstrations directed in part by Holmes herself, were a charade. He says he resigned because he no longer believed that the company was able to stand behind the claims it was making.
Did Theranos ever fake its technology demonstrations? Was Dan Edlin telling lies up there today?
The defense denies that Holmes was involved in any fakery, and more to the point, they say she truly believed in the technology, still does to this day. The fact that it failed, they say, is not a crime. Daniel Edlin will be back on the stand for more next week. Jeff?
She said she believes in her failed technology, and she believes that it's not a crime that it failed. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, so unrighteous dealings in the medical system, It's not specifically about this, but it applies. Injuries that God, through all, they put this trust in this Asclepius pharmakia witchcraft, and riches got by deceit. How they was getting all these riches lying, and it wasn't just all these Amalek, rich Rockefeller Amalek looking types. It was. I mean, even the one girl, if you got $100,000 investing something, you got some money, but look at her. That affected, that hurt, that 100,000 hurt more than probably the money lost from all them Amalekites. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. KAL HALAL YAHAWAH. I hope this lesson was edifying.